you here today. Let's begin by standing for the national anthem, followed by the opening prayer led by Mr. Kenneth Bulut.
Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tulilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Mr. Bulut.
Let's believe and pray. Everlasting Father, this morning we want to thank you for gathering us here together, dear Lord. We thank you for the conference that we've been able to have since Monday, dear Father. And even as we come to the very end, oh dear Lord, we pray that you may be with us, dear Father, for the panel discussions today, dear Lord, and the deliberations that shall go on today. We pray that you may go ahead of us. For we thank you and we bless you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. His Excellency Ambassador Philip Thigo, Kenya's Special Envoy for Technology, members of the Board of Directors EPRA, the Director General of EPRA, Dr. Engineer Joseph Okech, the Director Economic Planning and Strategy, Dr. John Mutua, the Deputy Director Regulatory Research and Policy Analysis, Njoki Karanja, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Here we finally are at the finish line, isn't it? Beyond the incredible conversations that we've had since the beginning of this conference, with the powerful start that we had at the Women and Energy Forum, all the way to today, something truly remarkable has been happening in the room behind us. That is the Youth Hackathon event that has been very kindly sponsored by our friends at UNICAF. So later today, we will be hearing from this particular hackathon and also celebrating the cutting-edge strategies and all the insights that the young people have made through their hard work during the week. But today, unlike previous days, I am of few words, and I want us to get straight into panel sessions. And there's an incredible panel that I can't wait to listen to. So I'd like to kindly request you to join me in welcoming Duncan Degwa, who's the Deputy Director of Regulatory Services at EPRA, to introduce this session and our panelists. Mr. Degwa? Let's applaud him as he comes up. And as he comes, I will tell you a little bit more about him. He is legal counsel specializing in policies, policy trends, and legal aspects in the energy and petroleum sector. He has particular interest, please go ahead. He has particular interest in development and review of regulations, follow-up processes, and incidental procedures, negotiating, drafting, implementing, interpreting, and monitoring of contracts within the energy sector. Mr. Ndegwa, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anne, for that introduction. It feels strange when things are said about you, and you probably have not seen them in that lens. Fun fact, I collect quotes, and most recently I came about one quote that I will just paraphrase to say that you have been the change that you've been waiting for. It does not need someone else to come. It does not need for certain events to take place so that that change can be realized, other than by yourself. Your Excellency, the Ambassador, allow me to ride on all the protocols which have been already established to introduce my panel, and we're hoping that we're going to have a very engaging morning with you, and also to have a conversation that is very practical. First on stage is Asha Abi. Asha Abi has a role in blended finance structuring. He's an expert in finance and catalytic capital deployment for energy and mobility. He is going to provide us with climate and energy specific practical insights into using blended financing instruments for scaling up emerging markets and de-risking private capital. Another hand of applause. A second on stage is Beatrice Gitu. She is a government representative. She is a senior financial analyst at the PPP Directorate within the National Treasury in Kenya. She's an expert in public-private partnerships, corporate finance, and investment analysis. She looks to bring capital or practical insight into how finance and partnerships can support energy and infrastructure development in both the private and public sectors. A hand of applause. Next on stage is Paul. He's a transactional advisor. He's a seasonal transactional advisor with this. A hand clap for Paul. Sorry. A hand clap for Paul. Sorry. Grace is an investment. She brings to the table a systems level perspective on how fiscal policy, governance, and public finance management shape the success of blended finance and infrastructure investment. So a hand clap for her. So good morning once again, and we'll jump straight into it. But before we get into the panel discussions, allow me to just put a very quick context about this conversation that we're going to have. In line with the theme of the conference is to say that what we are looking at probably as Kenyans and as citizens of the region is to ensure that we have universal access to affordable and reliable power. And so that this end is reached, then boils down to energy projects, which are supposed to balance at least three key apexes in this conversation, as that there is the interest of the consumer of this power, and then secondly, there is also the interest of government to ensure that there is universal access, affordable power, and reliable power. And of course, there is also the interests of would-be investors, both from the public and private sector. And so therefore, the conversation today is going to revolve around the financing of some of these energy projects, which at the end of the day, result to an application that will probably be made to the regulator to come up with a tariff. And this tariff is supposed to enable all these players to be able to realize their interest in one way or another. So our panelists today are going to take us through some of these climate financing mechanisms, and they'll tell us what these tools are about.
Activities. So one of the things that came about was how can we allocate finances into ventures that they deal to improve our climate space. And that's how the issues of climate finance came about. And one of the things was that the investors or the allocators of fund, they came and they said, now we'll start having a look at investment opportunities or ventures that promote the climate well-being. And it was still anchored about on the ESG, environmental, social and government, now the aspect of environment. So you find that the bond that were coming towards climate, they were priced fairly well, meaning that if you wanted to get into that money, you'd get it cheaper than you'd get in any other amount of money. You find that more people who are more conscious about our planet, they were putting in more money into that space. So it became into a space where there's more money, which is cheaper. Only what you needed to do is to demonstrate that actually you have you are working towards promotion of that. Human beings, as always, sometimes are mischievous. So somebody and some few people, and actually many people, start seeing an opportunity that actually this opportunity can be packaged, can be marketed, or can be put in that is climate friendly. But actually, at the back of it, it was not. Hence, the new terms that came about greenwashing. This is just trying to package something to look like it's green, but actually it's not. So that's made some, maybe other instances, you'll find that somebody saying that is going to attract, or you are going to do something, maybe to go to ensure that you are using energy in the while you're replacing coal or something like that. But when you come and you do the due diligences, you'll find that actually that's not the case. So what has happened is that in that climate innovations, or in that climate space, that for you to get to a place now you want to attract that what is climate, more people now are keen. Investors are asking more questions, regulators are asking more questions, and that's what's coming like the KPI. And the questions are like one, you tell us who has certified that what you're saying is green. Okay, so certification has become a very important thing. Two is, what are the metrics? What is the impact? So it doesn't need to be seen as like you're just saying numbers, but what is the impact? Can you be able to certify the impact? Can you say, if you're saying that you want to reduce the level of methane, how can you be able to demonstrate that? And then the other one is like, how good is it in terms of like employment? How well is it going to enable the community? And then the use of the proceeds. That becomes like one of the key things, that when you get that 1 million, when you get 2 million, what is the use? Because sometimes all things can be good in terms of climate, but when you come to use, it does everything else other than climate. And you find if those key questions are not answered, that certification, the use of the proceeds, the impact that is going to get it, the sustainability of it, like you don't want to put the money today, and then the following day it collapses, then those you'll have challenges now to convince or to package it as a green, like a climate packaged facility.
Thank you, Paul, for that. I think now we have an idea about what we are discussing, and therefore, now that we've been able to know what it is and what it is not, I'm going to invite a perspective that is different, at least from a policy perspective, and I would like to invite Wangari, and then probably Beatrice will follow thereafter, to ask which policy tools or credit enhancements, guarantees, or tax incentives most effectively mobilize private capital for clean energy deployment. So Wangari, you could go first, and then Beatrice will come.
All right, thank you for that question. I think the primary goal when you think about the context of this is that you want to maximize private capital for clean energy with the least fiscal risk and the least costs, right? This means in the energy sector, you're thinking about managing specific constraints with upfront costs, with policy and regulatory environment, and also for the currency risk involved. So with the three, when you think about guarantees, credit enhancements, and tax incentives, guarantees for me fall at the top of that pile because they are good at de-risking projects. They are also have low upfront costs and provide significant leverage for private capital. Credit enhancements are also key. Credit enhancements enhance bankability of projects, but from a fiscal risk perspective, they are less attractive than guarantees. And when you think about tax incentives are broad-based and they're also easy to implement. But on the downside, it means that there's less revenues coming to the government. So I think when you think a bit about it from that perspective, that's also something to consider. Typically what we see is that you have more of a blended approach when it comes to these things. It's not usually just one or the other, right? If you look at, for example, partial risk guarantees for wind power projects, you have like, blended private and public money, and that also provides some level of guarantee and some risk management for these projects.
Thank you, Wangari. Beatrice, if you could just chime in.
So thank you very much, Wangari, for your insight. So maybe I can just add another layer, speaking on behalf of government, where some of these tools could also involve government provisions. So not necessarily guarantees, but you could find that government goes ahead to offer a letter of support. So that would work in a sense of guaranteeing political risk. So risk against political expediencies that might occur. And it could also maybe mean facilitating an off-take agreement. For instance, getting together and putting together a power purchase agreement. So that could also help to de-risk that. Then maybe you can also talk about setting aside escrow accounts where government commits to set aside money so that every time a payment is due, it's actually available and the private party is actually aware that they're going to be paid, and it also makes the lenders very comfortable during the transaction. So, and then maybe another element is within the project agreement, which is the essential contract that a private party will enter with government. There are also, it can be envisioned that a termination might ensue. So that is very well clearly spelled out. And if the government fails, there's a penalty and it's being calculated. So there's a bit more certainty on what would happen in case something goes wrong or something doesn't go according to plan. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Beatrice. And I think now we've laid ground to talk about policies which are being followed both by government as represented by Beatrice, who sits in the PPP Directorate within the National Treasury, and also from Wangari, who happens to work with governments and all that. Now, if we can look at the appetite in Kenya, for instance, about these energy projects, allow me to just talk about the transmission master plan by KETRACO, which is a 20-year-old plan from 2025 to 2024. You're going to realize that the Kenya Transmission Company is very ambitious in that master plan, because in the next 20 years, they project that they are going to double the lines that they have, the high voltage lines they have. So at the moment, we have about 5,600 kilometers of high voltage lines. The plan is talking about advancing that to shy of 12,000 kilometers. It's looking to also double the number of substations that are there so that they can be able to step down this power that they'll be transmitting. So there's appetite in evacuation of power. And so there is also appetite in the generation of power, because at the moment we have about 65% of our energy mix of power being generated from geo. And we have got about 10,000 megawatts of geothermal potential that we are looking to realize in the next few years. We also have a very ambitious plan. I don't think it is ambitious, because I think from our energy mix, our clean energy is on the up and up, because if geo takes about 65, we have solar and wind coming up. So there's also quite a number of projects which are going to come up in terms of generation. So what we are looking at as a government is to try and tap in private capital or blended financing, both public and private, to ensure that we're able to realize these plans. We also have a net zero ambition with regard to the energy transition and investment plan, and would want to have 100% clean power generation by the year 2050. I don't know whether I got that correctly, but we have that ambition to do that. So clearly there is a number of projects which are going to be lined up. So with regard to this, I'd like to invite Ashe to talk to us about these de-risking instruments and how they deliver best risk-adjusted returns when financing early-stage clean energy in frontier markets, which again is going to cover quite a number of our countries in the region. Ashe.
Great. Thank you, Duncan. Good morning, everyone. Duncan, first of all, allow me to congratulate EPRA on this conference, and also the point that you said that there is a need for blending, and it is very important for governments to realize that there are certain sectors, especially the energy sector, that need to be regulated, but at the same time, only public capital cannot sustain them. So private capital has to be a key player, a key pillar in building the market. Now, how do we attract that private capital? Private capital has a very straightforward premise: profits. To make sure that private capital is able to earn from the projects or from whatever market it is entering, it has to be de-risked. Now, that de-risking is the entire point of blending capital. Another thing to note here is that capital availability is not the problem. It is the access. So again, the capital that is locked into the private sector has to be made accessible. And how is it made accessible is by providing these de-risking instruments. Let me give you a perspective into what are some of these de-risking instruments that can be utilized. One is guarantees. Partial credit guarantees or the credit guarantees. These work brilliant. We've seen in most emerging markets, guarantees provided to the initial phase of the market building. It leverages itself by 5x, 10x, and brings in the private capital that is necessary. Now, the private capital, once it knows that there is a certain guarantee at a certain stage of the market where no matter what, it is going to get a certain amount of returns, that creates that sort of cushion for them to enter the market. Second is first loss capital. Now, this is typically the DFI or the donor capital that comes in as the first loss providers. It says that if there is any default, I'll be the one to take the hit. Why are they able to take the hit? Because their capital is cheaper. What is more expensive capital is what they're de-risking, the private sector capital. Now, when they say that I'm going to take the first loss, what it essentially means is that that is the extent of the use of my capital. So it is good at de-risking the first loss, but it is probably not the best to offer returns. So first loss only comes in at a point where you're not expecting high returns. Now, this can be super effective in emerging markets such as electric mobility, off-grid solar, where the volume is high, the cost is low, you need demand aggregation, you need multiple levels of market making, market creation instruments. Another de-risking tool is insurance. Now, insurance is interesting. Of course, it works very well for the insurance companies, but for the consumer side or for the private sector, how it works is that it does not provide any sort of de-risking. Rather, it does not remove risk, it replaces risk. Now, you are paying premiums for your insurance, and that ensures essentially that there is more capital going in. It just doesn't go where it is needed, perhaps, but it goes in de-risking, or rather removing that risk but we are pricing that risk into the insurance premium. So it is not just about, the insurance is not just about de-risking that capital, but pricing it. Now, where does it really come in? Off-taker risks. We provide insurance premium on construction, on delays. Forex is something that is now gaining perspective in the insurance market as well. So those are some of the blended instruments, or some of the instruments that can help de-risk initial early stage markets such as solar, wind, and other such energy markets. Duncan.
Thank you, Ashay. I hope we've been following the conversation so far. So we started at what are the fiscal or legal changes that have been done both in the country and also in the region to ensure that we are able to absorb, or we are able to actually take in some of these financing mechanisms. I like what Asha said about and also about what it is that these carbon markets are, what these transition bonds are, and the sustainability bonds. The certification that is there and the impact that they have. Then Asha has brought in a very good perspective to say that the challenge is actually access to capital. It's not whether capital exists. And how it is that they incentivize, or we incentivize as governments to take up some of this capital with regard to these de-risking tools. Very interestingly to say that insurance only restitutes. It does not guarantee you your return. And remember, we are talking about private capital. So that means that the business people, the investors are coming in for a return. Now, this access to capital comes from one of so many places, one of which is development banks, which I'd like to invite Grace to talk about. How should development banks deploy guarantees, first loss capital, and technical assistance to catalyze private financiers into high impact energy projects? And Grace, one of your key audience listening is Dr. Mutua. I'm sure he'll have something to say about guarantees later. Grace.
Thank you. And indeed, I'm also very delighted to be here, and congratulations, EPRA, for always doing this. It's exciting to see our regulator trying to educate the population and allowing us to also participate with that. But I'll not repeat what my other panelists have spoken about. So already mentioned about guarantees. But what I'll probably want to highlight is I would want us to look at this in a cascade manner, that if we don't lay the foundations properly, then it also becomes very challenging for the private sector to participate. And this comes with what we typically offer as development banks, World Bank, AFD. We offer technical assistance to lay policies and foundations that allow private sector to participate. We will do things like feasibility studies. We will help countries come up with proper procurement, mechanisms. We are now working with the government of Kenya to see how to work on the first renewable energy auctions. Already the policy is in place again through our support. And actually established through one of our instruments within the bank, that is the development policy financing mechanism, which allows a macro nature of such a policy. So with that, then you're able to have a framework that, again, is providing some level of predictability, transparency, for private sector to feel comfortable to get involved. Taking care of issues around demand to make sure the countries are not, again, overcommitting themselves and have challenges later paying off, ensuring institutions such as Kenya Power are credit-worthy to be good, healthy off-takers. And most importantly, also building the institutions, because again, for private sector, they do not want to have isolated deals. They want to have a pipeline of projects. And we're also already working, and I'm glad that you're already in the space of looking at the Ketraco master plan. We are assisting them now to see how best to screen PPP projects that can be subjected to the market. That said, there is still space for guarantees. I mean, when you have identified all these projects, and some of them are bankable, but to make sure they are, there's some risks that are not commercial and have to be taken in. But we should not always go for full guarantees. It's always, and hence the reason why typically we'll go for partial risk guarantees, so that what can be priced by the private sector is priced. The bank does either guarantees, and the team here, most of them will know them. They've been granted to Kenya Power for most of the PPAs. We also have PPAs that have both IDA and MEGA, political insurance. So these are mechanisms that these development institutions are able to step in and facilitate countries. For the first loss capital, I would want us to look at it as in the cascade as our last option after we've exhausted all these other mechanisms. And for that, I think most of the climate funds are coming in now in the new and also already early markets, mini grids where the areas where there are challenges, you will find climate funds coming in to take in the first loss. But most importantly, even as much as I work for World Bank, that's IBRD, which my main client is government, our thinking is always we step in where the private sector cannot step in. And I submit to that.
Thank you so much, Grace. I think that has been very insightful. I want us to now change, to shift gear a bit. According to the Kenyan Constitution and also according to the Kenyan Act, energy is one of those shared functions between national and county government. So we're even going granular now. So it's not even at a national perspective, but now we are going to a county perspective. And this probably is at the tail end of the value chain, because now you've generated power, you've been able to evacuate power. Now you're distributing and retailing or reticulating. And it is at that point that you're able to collect the tariff or what it is that you get at the end of the day. And so therefore I want to invite Paul to talk to us about how investors can scale exposure to smaller issuers, that is municipalities or SMEs, without prohibitive transaction costs. Paul.
Thanks. And I think it's just small follow-up to what just have been said about the guarantees. But however, if it's always said that the effort you take to attract $1 million in a project, it will be ideally the same effort you take to attract to, let's say, 1 billion, 100 million, because the paperwork is the same, the effort is the same. So you'll find that small size tickets, many people shy out of it because they say, well, it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, the pay out of it is not much. Maybe the oversight, the effort, and there's no actually economies of scale. Okay, thanks. And then actually there's no economies of scale. So what has happened is that you'll find that if the transactions have been done by, let's say, the geothermal, the KenGen, you'll be able to pull a lot of investors. You'll have many avenues that you can be able to access. You can go to capital markets, but if you're talking about a mini grid somewhere being developed by Kenya Tea Development Authority, for example, or being done by a community somewhere in a setup far from town, you'll find that actually, in as much as that will be community linked, it will not get as much as attraction, as much as of access to capital. But the question now comes in, how well can it be done? One of them can be pulling those opportunities together. Just package them. So instead of saying you're doing, instead of going out for one mini grid, you go for multiple of them. So if an investor is coming, he's just seeing some a combined and a scale of investments that they can be able to look at. At the moment, you are working for something similar in Zambia, where on one standing, it's not viable in terms of the effort. But when it becomes the pool, as a pool, and then we come with similar platforms, similar guidelines, then you find it becomes a size that is big enough to be looked at it. And then the other one is just technical advisory and technical assistance. That's where development institutions comes in. Such small ticket-sized opportunities, they cannot be able to engage some, what we'll say, grade A investment advisors. But you see, they actually need that assistance. So what I've seen, especially like many international development partners, is where they pay technical assistance and then the advisors go and help those small scales. So that way you unlock, because they are able to access opportunities and advice and information that ideally they cannot be able to pay for it. Then the other one that they can be able to do is that to ensure that there is more availing of first loss. When I say first loss is where there's an insurance. Okay. Well, let me not use the word insurance. There's this fund that is committed that we know that it may take 1, 2, 3, or 4 years to break even. But then some funders, they come and they say they are going to absorb that loss. That way, what you do is that you ensure and you enhance the stage of proof of concept. And by the time it's getting to economic sustainability, there's somebody who has stood with this small scale issuer, and the opportunity becomes economically viable. And then finally, what I'll say is that what is more important is that you ensure that instead of condemning those small investments, is we consolidate them and we ensure that they are packaged for better visibility.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I think that to me makes a lot of sense because I just keep wondering to myself, if we are grappling with things at a national level, then what happens if we go, granular to devolved units? And I think that breakdown from you has been very insightful. Ashe, I'd like to invite you now to talk to us about these blended financing structures, which preserve commercial returns while providing measurable development impact. And if you don't mind, you could talk about the social impact as well, so that you can answer that in one question. Thank you, Ashe.
Sure. Thank you, Duncan. How we look at blended financing structures is it's actually it's built on a very simple fundamental. What is it that you want? To take an example of what I was talking about earlier, guarantees and first loss and insurance. If you want returns, you go with guarantees. If you want to create the market, you go with first loss. If you want more resilience into the market, you go with insurance. But if you really want a holistic market development to happen, you go with all three structured into a blended mode. Now, allow me to take this forward. The most ideal blending of finance, it's ultimately, it's all money. The only difference is who wants it first and at what return. So that is what determines how you blend the capital. Now you've got the three primary players providing this capital. Let's say there is the DFI donor money, which is called the concessional capital. Then there is the impact layer, the impact investors, where you have some sort of lower returns, higher capacity to take risk, but lower returns. And then finally, you have the commercial capital, low risk capacity, higher returns expectation, right? So how do you blend this? Now, typically what we do and what we suggest is also using the concessional capital as a junior layer into the blending, which means that this is sort of the first loss. Whatever happens does not happen. That money is more or less gone or not going to be recovered, and that is also the expectation of the donor. Now that is why it is called the donor capital, because it's donated. It's mostly grants or maybe zero interest loans. Then you have the impact investors. These are people who've already pulled in money from philanthropic sources, from CSR, from multiple other low-cost capital sources. This makes the mezzanine layer. So the junior layer, it's capital that is, for lack of a better word, sunk. Mezzanine is that gets some sort of returns. And then you have the senior layer, which has to always be the one that has the highest return expectation and the lowest risk-taking capacity. So that becomes the commercial capital. This is how the blending happens. This is a layered, tranched structure that we often suggest to our to the players who are looking for it. Next, you can also use some guarantee-backed platforms. Increasingly, we are going to look at capital platforms rather than just isolated capital coming into the market. This is what sort of de-risks the local banks for, let's say you want to put a grid-connected solar project, huge capital investment, but you don't want the forex risk. So how do you bring in the local capital or the local banks or the local money into it? That is where you create a credit guarantee platform or a guarantee-backed lending platform. This is primarily for debt. It's super efficient. It helps you scale. Then we're also talking about results-based financing. Now, this is very interesting because this is where your project is not de-risked, rather it is rewarded. Now, how does that reward work? It's quite simple. The private sector or the commercial capital, it comes in upfront, provides the capex to build the project. And that is when the donor takes over and says, if you meet criteria A, B, C of this particular project, then, or if you build the asset in X amount of time with X money, that is when you're going to get more donor or concessional capital in. So that concessional capital has to be built into the model that they're using along with the private capital. So those are some of the things that we can do with blending. To answer your next question on how can impact be built into this, see, until now, impact has had a role which has been more peripheral in nature. It is good for measurement, it is good for reporting. But what we would like to see, especially with the private sector coming in and with more blending instruments entering the market, impact has to be valued. The value of that impact has to be built into the models that are providing capital for the assets. How does that happen? Again, with the same premise. What is it that you want? What is your mandate? What is the non-negotiable? How do we make sure that this impact is tangible on the ground? So you have, say, impact in, let's take the example of clean cooking. You have emissions, yes, but what is the actual impact that is happening on the ground? You're seeing a decline in indoor air pollution related diseases. So that impact leads to, what does it lead to from a fungible, tangible capital value point of view? And that has to be built in. You have less expenditure on healthcare in that particular area. How can you build that into the model? We're also talking about translating these social outcomes that we want from the impact into, say, cost drivers. So if a Boda Boda rider has his livelihood increased, his or her livelihood increased by, say, 30%, it means more income being generated for the family, but it also means that your payments are coming back more regularly, right? So that is how we have to build value into actual real cash. And the impact has to no longer just be measured and reported, but also be built into the models that we are seeking. Duncan, over to you.
Thank you so much. It feels like someone is talking to me directly, because I think I will leave the first blended structures to the transactional advisors, the likes of Paul and Nwangari and Beatrice, to figure it out. But I liked the comment about the impact being valued. And I think for me, that is a major takeaway from this session, because when you're talking about an impact of an energy project, then it has to be measured, because that's the way you would be able to tell that this project has actually added some value into our social community. And actually, I was just looking at my director, Woy, and we have a project of upstream that is happening up in Turkana County. And as we are measuring something like local content, what our brothers and sisters in Uganda call national content, while we have, I mean, we are crawling in terms of defining what local content is in Kenya, because you're talking about a company that has been registered or is owned 100% by Kenyans or by locals. But in Uganda, I think they've taken the conversation a bit further, where they're talking about a local company being able to demonstrate that 70% of its employment opportunities have been given to Ugandans. So it's no longer an issue about probably ownership, but a bit beneficial ownership. 70% of the goods are being sourced from Uganda. And I know we've had a problem with that, Director Woy, when we went to Turkana, when we were doing the public participation, and members of the public were asking us, what do you mean local content? Because how they understand it is local content means the people who come from around here, isn't it? And therefore, whatever the case may be, whatever parameter that we are going to agree on, for instance, as a country, then it has to be measurable. I think that was very well stated, Ashe. At this point in time, I would like to invite Beatrice and Wangare also to just talk to us. Now, the money is here, blended, layered, de-risked. The money is here. But the reality on the ground is that we've had a false start on one of our transmission projects where we were not able to close a deal with Adani. But I think from the lessons from there, we were able to close in on a deal with Africa 50. So my question to you is, how can PPP frameworks be designed to balance investor protections? Because there's a great importance for us to ensure that the investor protections, that we make our country with all these projects that we are putting up friendly for them to be able to approach. And you juxtapose that against public transparency and value for money. So the money is here. How is it that we put protections for our investors who've come in? And then how is it that you're able to realize this value for money? So I'll have you, Beatrice, and then Wangari.
Thank you so much. It's very interesting that all through the conversations, we are building onto each other and also increasing our knowledge. So maybe just to say that from a government perspective, the nature of PPPs, so for those who don't know, PPPs are public-private partnerships. And this is where a private party seeks to undertake a government function. So that means, like for KETRACO, for instance, KETRACO's mission is to build transmission lines, build, maintain, and operate transmission lines. So if we say that Africa 50 is endeavoring to get into a PPP partnership, it means that it has identified a certain portion of a transmission line and it intends to build it and operate it for a certain amount of period. And for our Kenyan law, it's 30 years. So the nature of PPPs at its base is to be able to allocate risk to the party that is best able to handle it. That is where we start from. And that means that for government, sometimes it's political risk and also regulatory risk. So that is ensuring that there's a good framework to be able to conduct business in Kenya. You know that if you come in and you're putting your investment here, nobody will come and tell you, no, you don't have a license for that. No, you don't have permission to operate in this country. No, the government is going to come and take this and you will not be compensated. So that is best handled by government. And for the private party, there are also benefits of doing business with the private party, because in this case now they're able to take the commercial risks and also the construction risk. Like for many government projects, you find that because of budgetary constraints, a project starts and you're not able to follow through. So a project that should have taken 3 years to do takes 7 years. And by that time, whatever you had in mind as value for money has already been eroded. And sometimes the question is, I mean, why can't there's also a notion sometimes that PPPs are expensive, but PPPs have also calculated the amount of money that is lost in overruns, cost overruns, in delays of a project, in making sure that the project starts on time and is actually able to deliver the value and the service that was set to be delivered by Kenyans. So one of the main, maybe just as an input in terms of government, on our government side, it's very, very important that we prepare good bankable transactions. I think that is what the private sector envisions. And I would agree with both Paul and Ashley that there is no lack of capital. What capital wants is, it has some conditions, and it's being able to look at an opportunity and see that if I invest my money here as opposed to treasury bills or bonds or in another place in this world, I will be able to get a certain return. And sometimes, based on the different investor profiles, not everyone is looking for the highest bank. I mean, especially for DFIs, for them, the most important task, for instance, would just be to get this project off the ground. And that is why they're providing that fast loss capital. For certain private investors, it's, I need that money to be paid in some time in the distant future and not now. So you find that blending all these risk profiles, the most important thing maybe you can start from, and what we are committed as the PPP Directorate, part of National Treasury, is to be able to prepare bankable transactions, to be able to prepare to conduct a transparent procurement process, for instance, so that you find that no parties are aggrieved or there are disputes with regards to transactions. It's also to be able to come up with standardized contracts. So that means that we are not having to start from scratch and take so much time in project preparation. Internally, we have a facility called the Project Preparation Fund. This enables, it was funded by the World Bank, and we are in custody of that. So this helps us to be able to prepare bankable projects. So it enables us to support contracting authorities like Kenha, Kengen, Ketraco, to be able to prepare an opportunity and bring it to the market competitively. That means carrying out project feasibility, putting together the transaction documents to be able to go and look for a private party, conduct the procurement process, identify a private investor, do negotiations with them until we get to the point where we can say, now we have a contract and we can start this project. And then also support the contracting authority in being able to execute that contract. So that means that you're looking at factors like performance, like how contract management, in terms of, okay, so in the promise and in the project agreement, they said they're going to do this, and to a certain standard. Has that been met? So we support both the private party and the contracting authorities on behalf of government to be able to do this. It's also to be able to prepare a project that has a bankable revenue model. So it's very clear, for instance, when we are preparing a project, and the private party is asking, so how do we intend to get paid? So is it going to be, is there going to be a guarantee? Is there an offtake agreement? Is it a take or pay arrangement, or are we expected to maintain certain minimum standards? So we are able to prepare that so that we can be able to make this project bankable and attractive to the private sector. And then also, maybe just to mention, it's a stronger disclosure framework. And we were affected dearly by the Adani transactions. And one of the biggest takeaway from that was that the public felt that there may not have been value for money, or may not have understood the proper elements or the details of the contract, and that we, in a sense, take responsibility, and we are committed now to more disclosures in terms of you have received, for instance, a privately initiated proposal. These are the terms, and you find that if more people know who has put what on the table, then everyone is happy. So that is one of the other things that we are doing. And then mostly it's to be able to have a proper dispute resolution mechanisms, and we've provided for that. So as the PPP, in a sense, body, there's also, they may not know, a PPP petitions committee, where if a private party is aggrieved by any part of the process in terms of the procurement process, they can be able to submit the dispute, and it will be resolved within the tribunal, or if not that, it can go into arbitration. And even the project agreements provide for those mechanisms. So I submit.
Thank you, Beatrice. That was quite extensive. But 3 things that I've been able to pick from that is that our PPP framework is supposed to be a very predictable one because it's building blocks. First project in, probably the next project is going to come and build on the first project that went in. I think it's important that we get it from the word go. On the issue of disclosure, I think that's a very important point to take out because I know at one point the challenge was before the guidelines were published by the National Treasury was some of these projects are very delicate. So at what point do you reveal what and to whom? So I think that's how we came up with the disclosure guidelines, which I think was important. And I think lastly on what Beatrice has talked about is on political risk. I know that we've been having a very difficult period as a country because of a moratorium that was placed on PPAs. So you can imagine an investor has come in, they've put in their money, but it's taken a longer lead period because of a political activity that has not enabled the project to, to close. And that definitely is going to be factored in by ASHE and other investors because they'll say, in as much as your PPA is supposed to take so long to be approved, there's a risk that we have observed in your country where it is a political risk because this moratorium had been placed, I think, by the president, then it was lifted by parliament, then it was again put in place. So because of all those observations, then our risk capex is going probably to go higher, and therefore this is going to translate into an insurance premium. That insurance premium will have to be reflected in the tariff. So these things that we are talking about are real and they face us. And I think I'll invite Wangare to just give a comment on the same question that I put to Beatrice. Wangare.
So I think that was quite comprehensive. And I think when you think about PPPs from a PFM perspective, it's really about bankability and accountability, right? So for first, you have to make sure that risks are allocated properly. And I think that is something that came out strongly from Beatrice. You have to make sure that you have a competitive and transparent procurement process. I think that's vital to ensure that investors have confidence that the resources are going and being used effectively, especially in a context like ours in Kenya, where we're having a lot of questions coming from the Controller Budget and the Auditor General about how procurement practices are. It's important to have that transparency. And then in addition, you have to make sure that you fully disclose commitments and contingent liabilities to ensure that transparency again, to improve confidence in the market. And then fourth, to ensure that there's linkages of payments to performance. And I think that would be also crucial to underscore strong PPP frameworks. So at the end of the day, PPPs work best when governments provide targeted protections for investors, as outlined, and ensuring that there's strong transparency frameworks in place.
Thank you so much, Wangare. I think that is very well summed up. I'd want to invite Grace to make her final comments, but before she does, I'd like for her to answer to us the criteria that they use to guide, institutions whether to take up subordinated or concessionary positions versus mobilizing commercial co-finances.
Thank you, Duncan. So as I said earlier, as much as we are IBRD and typically just work with the government, in most cases, we'll want to work with the government as you're preparing a framework where we can have a lot more private sector participating later on. So you'll find us working into spaces where it's early, it's happening early. And I want to give the example, and I want to use an example in showing how, we anticipate this to go forward for this beautiful country of ours. So for example, in the case of renewable energy space, with geothermal, the drilling, we still think there's space for concessional and subordinated financing because there are some risks there that have not really been taken up by the private sector, or private sector has not gotten used to pricing them. When you look at solar, for example, there is already vibrance. The private sector is already doing very well with IPPs in the solar space. So we don't see a space for example, for the bank to come in there and finance give a public debt to finance a solar power plant. I know we have done something with the battery energy storage with Kengen. This is because it was the first utility scale. We are already preparing the government for downscale of private sector participation in battery energy storage of similar nature, utility scale. So there's need to think through this as you're putting in, you're borrowing, you're using your physical space to finance while you're working towards having private sector coming in and taking on the space. That's what I would say in terms of how we look at, and this is where the World Bank Group approach comes in. IBRD is preparing this space, then you can have IFC and MIGA stepping in to make sure private sector can also thrive in making sure that infrastructure is being developed. But saying that, and because you asked me to also give my final remarks, and because there are policymakers in this room, this will not work without transparency. This will not work without proper foundation on competition and something that gives everybody comfort that when they submit a bid, then that bid is going to be considered on merit and not nothing else. What we are doing towards that and right now is to support the Ministry of Energy launch the first solar auction or wind auction. It could come with battery or not. So anybody here who is in the TA space, please look out for that. And the intent is, since the renewable energy auctions policy has been in place for a long time now, is to ensure that that is now beginning to get implemented. We are also at a good space because through everybody's support in the sector, Kenya Power now is in a good place. It's a good off-taker right now. So it's at this stage that we need to take advantage of this and have the auction happen. We will support the TO, and of course, hopefully, we will very soon see some solar wind auction with battery storage being done and implemented in this country.
Thank you very much, Grace. And I think that brings us to the end of our session. However, before we end it, I'd just like for the panelists to give their final comments. Grace has already done that, so if I could start with Wangari and then coming this way. Wangari.
Thank you very much. I think in my closing comments, it's just one reflection, and I think about the new National Infrastructure Fund and the opportunities that come with that. As you know, with the National Infrastructure Fund, there's going to be capital that comes in from the private and the public sector, and none can work independently. The public must invest with the private sector. Public cannot go independently to invest in a project. And I think that brings a very kind of interesting guardrail for the projects, especially in a context of a country like ours, where sometimes there's a lot of governance challenges that are flagged. Essentially, it provides a guardrail that if there's investment going into in large infrastructure, especially in energy, clean energy and the like, that the private sector brings an assurance, some sort of assurance that procurement processes, transparency, and kind of abiding to international frameworks comes into that space. So I think there's a good opportunity there. The only challenge I see with the NIF, especially when it comes to these big projects, especially in energy, is ensuring that the governance framework is tight and in place, and ensuring that whoever is making the approvals, whoever is in charge of prioritizing projects, etc., is watertight. But I think the National Infrastructure Fund provides a really strong opportunity when you even think about innovative financing and things. Funds like this have worked in other regions, for example, in Nigeria, where they also have similar issues. So I think that's a compelling context, a compelling fund, and I hope that that's something that's going to bring a lot of benefits for this sector.
Okay, thank you, Wangari. Paul?
Yeah, my closing remarks is that, as has been well put by the panelists, is that capital is available, but there are means of capital access. We cannot talk less, or we can't underestimate the power of transparency. Things need to be seen, they have been done right, and also must be done right. Then the second one is that whatever we do, it must be measurable. It must not be, initially, people used to talk about voodoo economics, that you can't explain something, but I just want to it to look like economics. But that's not the case. anything that you do, anything that you say, anything that you put out there must not only be measurable, but it must be felt and must be seen. Think people ask more questions, and as has been well put here, in many instances you engage as transactional advisors, and we'll ask those hard questions on behalf of the investors. And if those questions, if the answers are not forthcoming, no matter how good the project is, it will be put aside, because we are in a competing space where the resources is scarce and it's only allocated to the venture or to the opportunities that seems to match or that it's well backed. So you better back up your resources and you better back up your opportunities. And then finally, is that when you talk about energy, any space you are in, we need energy, be it for manufacturing, be it for homestead use, be it for whatever. The engine, the economic growth engine, even in the AI, because those data centers need to be powered, it all falls back to the energy. So for us to lift our economy to the next level, energy is a key pillar to it, and all people, their eyes are on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Beatrice?
So for me, I will just say that, especially on behalf of government and the PPP Directorate to be specific, my focus and our focus would be to build a bank, a pipeline of consistent, well-prepared opportunities that are able to attract private sector capital.
Yeah, I think that's a very important one. We need to line our ducks so that by the time investors are coming, they know exactly which ones to shoot down first. Ashay.
Right. I think I'll take Paul's point and take it a little bit further. Energy sits at a wonderful cusp of impact, value, and returns. And that is why this is probably energy infrastructure is one of the places where you see PPP models, where you see private capital wanting to come in, but lacking the structures to bring it in. So blending becomes super interesting and super important for energy infrastructure. The other thing is also that blending has to be structured in a way that it is not just chasing concessional capital, but utilizing it to leverage more and more private capital to ultimately create the value and impact that energy infrastructure has on everyone's lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. And for my takeaways, just to say that it's been a very exciting panel to sit in and to say that we've learned quite a bit from the South African Power Pool. I think we have one of our members here from Namibia. And this is some of the examples that the region has taken a position on by creating the East African Power Pool. And we are hoping that we are going to start trading very soon. And part of what we were doing about a week ago is to just check how ready we are to move to this East African Power Pool. And we had to go to each country, all the way from Egypt all the way down to Tanzania, to see how well policy for each member state has aligned to the issue of these electricity markets and open access. So I think for me, that would be the end. I don't know whether we have 2 or 5 minutes for questions from the audience. Anne says no. So it means then, as we're having tea, please welcome to visit any of the panelists to have a conversation with them. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you. A round of applause for them. I think they deserve a better one than that. Thank you. Please stand and step forward. We would like to appreciate you in a much better way. I'd like to request the CEO of the Electricity Control Board Namibia and Chair of the Africa Forum for Utility Regulators to join us on stage and help us give this award. Mr. Robert Kahimise, if he's in the room. Please come, sir. Thank you and congratulations. We'd now like to request our dignitaries led by the ambassador to exit the room for tea. We'd like to welcome you for tea for the next 15 minutes. And we'll ask Madam Jockey to lead them out as we request the rest of our audience to hold on for a minute or two, and then we will be joining them for tea very shortly. Thank you. You did such a brilliant job. Yes, absolutely. Oh, it was brilliant. No. The way you were stringing it in together made it delivering applied innovation programs across Africa. Today, he specially joins us as the hackathon technical advisor for the Youth Summit that has been running in parallel. And he's also attached, of course, to EPRA's Research and Innovation Conference, engaged by UNDP, who are our partners, for the purposes of supporting design, delivery, and synthesis of the Youth Innovation Hackathon, ensuring alignment with the regulatory and policy priorities. He has previously led large-scale innovation and experimentation initiatives at the UNDP Accelerator Lab in Kenya, working at the intersection of data policy and real-world implementation. He is, as I've mentioned earlier, the founder of MOI, which is a mission-driven innovation studio focused on turning real public interest challenges into structured, mentored build cycles that translate into ideas and, of course, practical decision-ready solutions. So, Victor, welcome together with your panel to run us through this next session.
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everyone. How are you feeling? So this is the final panel. Yay! So just turn to your neighbor and tell them we made it, right? So over the last few days, and especially through, the youth hackathon that we've been hosting as part of the Youth Summit on the other side, we've seen the promise of AI and data in energy. But promise alone, doesn't change systems. Scale does. So today we're asking a simple but very difficult question. What actually allows AI-driven energy innovations to move from proof of concept to public value? So that journey depends on a number of things. So there's policy, there's regulation, there's infrastructure, finance, and it's good that this session is just building onto the session that we've just had, talent and trust. And our panel reflects each of those dimensions. So I'd like us to focus on what helps innovations endure, not just impress. And I look forward to learning together with you, given that we are all working towards solving challenges. So in that sense, we are all striving to innovate, but then we also need to scale those innovations so that they contribute to public value. With that frame in mind, let me introduce our panelists. First off is someone who doesn't need no introduction. His Excellency Ambassador Philip Thigo, the Republic of Kenya's Special Envoy for Technology. That was the first of such roles in Africa, right? And he's also an internationally recognized expert in technology policy and digital governance. Karibu sana. Next up is Dr. Charity Oyua, the Director, IBM Research Africa, overseeing research labs in Kenya and South Africa, focused on developing next-gen computing technologies. She leads multidisciplinary teams applying AI, hybrid cloud, and advanced analytics to real-world challenges, including climate, sustainability, and the public sector. Following closely is Dr. Engineer Phoenix Musonye, the Deputy Director, Energy Efficiency at EPRA. He's the Deputy Director, an energy specialist with doctoral and master's degrees in energy technology, a background in mechanical engineering, and advanced training in project management from the Kenya Institute of Management. And I must add, that was before 2018. Then we have Mr. Simbarashe Gwenzi, who is supposed to be joining us virtually. I don't know if we have Simba. So he's dialing in from Zimbabwe, and he understands that the short form of his name denotes the pride of Africa. So you can also call him Simba. And then lastly, we have architect Anna Musimi, the chief manager, physical planning, compliance, and environment, the Konza Technopolis Development Authority. She previously served as acting chief manager for construction, operations, and management and was the authority's first project manager, leading foundational infrastructure and planning efforts. All right, I don't know if we have Simba online and architect Anna. All right, but we can just start.
We can do, but for now, I would focus on 2 areas and to improve reliability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So there are spaces within, that chain from planning to transmitting, where those innovations could plug in. Dr. Oyua, you want to come in?
Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. So maybe I'll answer this question slightly differently, just so we enrich the discussion. Rather than me picking a particular innovation or opportunity, maybe what I can say is generally, I think. Some background. All right, let's try that again. Good. I think mainly I will say in the generation of actionable insights. Okay. And then qualify that by saying, therefore, because of that, we pick the different opportunities that allow us to be able to get actionable insights. And where do you find those kinds of opportunities? I think first and foremost, it's in the space where we have lots of data. So as the engineer here was talking about the different areas, then you pick the specific places or workflows where your data is rich, right? Where you need to make decisions frequently, where you sort of have repeating patterns, because that is where AI shines the most. And where human performance is limited, and limited because maybe you have too many different variables that you have to think about so that you can make a decision, where there's certain levels of uncertainty. So think about the spaces for renewable energy, where you have weather as something that's quite uncertain. And so that's where I would say AI opportunities exist. And maybe I'll finish that by saying maybe where also you can clearly quantify the value of improvement and you have an outcome that you're measuring. So in the space I work in, we don't see like one magic use case for AI, but we see improvements that happen all across the value chain, and that is where you sort of get a very synergistic impact. So that's how I quantify the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayu. I think there are quite a number of opportunities where we can leverage AI, and also just looking at other sectors, how it's been applied and how that could be adapted or adopted within a different sector. His Excellency, I would really love to hear from you from a policy perspective. Please do come in.
It's too much. If you just say Philip, it's fine. I think, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Just had tea. Some of us didn't. But I think for me, it's just a couple of things. It's just to unpack the question, right? I think one is innovation. Innovation is not about technology. Innovation is doing things differently. And I think some people equate innovation and tech, so I always like to separate the two. And then the second part, of course, is looking at artificial intelligence, which I think for me is not necessarily our technology. Yeah, it's a general purpose technology. And to the extent that we live in an era basically of intelligence, so I see that if we live in an era of intelligence, then you need intelligent systems to also manage energy. So I think for me, I see those two. So the biggest opportunity I think for me is to leverage technology to do things a little bit differently in the sector, which means we need some form of intelligence, and Charity has mentioned kind of those insights. But I think for me, I want to build on those insights to be more real-time, more predictive, more adaptive, more optimized. But it's not in the previous era, because things are moving very quickly. We need things to be a little bit smarter. I think the second part, of course, is understanding that our development is resource intensive. So we are developing in a resource intensive way on resources we do not have. And so I think for me, where artificial intelligence comes in is enables us to be able to manage those scarce resources, to be able to deliver in an accelerated environment, but in an also very constrained environment. And so I think for me, and I think that's what I was listening to the hackathon right now, is to the extent of realizing that the solutions that you're trying to provide are in a very uneven context. And so there are people who have, and we're just discussing Dr. Charity around this, there's those who do not have, yet they all need energy. And so where artificial intelligence could be interesting is to provide kind of a differentiated service model that recognizes the unevenness of our population that then provides energy to those who need it despite the differences. And that's true because we already have 600 million Africans who do not have electricity. So you do not want to actually accentuate that gap. I think finally is to the extent that if you come to the concept of Kenya, and I know we have many people from other parts of the world, of Africa, is that our energy mix is different. We have solar, we have geothermal, we have wind. And so you need, and to my understanding when I talk to Milele up north, is a better mechanism to anticipate the mix, but also how to provide that mix depending on user demand. And so I think for me, that's where also you have kind of AI being able to provide the kind of extra capability so that systems are able to provide some form of optimization, but also stability around energy provision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Tigo. I think you brought up a point around, we have these underserved areas, marginalized settings, and we're talking about skill. So how do we then ensure that we're able to, serve all these people? And so I want to bring on board architect Anna Musimi from Technopolis. We often talk about AI abstractly, but one of the questions, especially looking at what Kotda does, so the question is, what has to exist, either physically, digitally, institutionally, for these innovations to actually survive or scale?
Thank you for that observation. First, I'm sorry I came a little bit late. I was one of the judges in what was happening earlier today. And just according to your question, for us to have artificial intelligence actually working, we need the physical infrastructure put in place. You've had discussions about data centers and also the architecture of artificial intelligent data centers, because these do simulations real time. Such data centers are not just for data storage, but they are an active ecosystem where simulations, optimization is happening with the AI platforms. So from a Concert Technopolis perspective, of course, we have our national data center, but how we are impacting on the debate around artificial intelligence, both in Concert and nationwide, is the provision of all infrastructure, physical infrastructure relating to it. We are doing several laboratories. We call them Ditume laboratories, 100 of them, at least 2 in each county. And we are offering training for in those laboratories, including use of artificial intelligence for developers or software developers, including use of artificial intelligence for companies and how they can optimize that. And generally, we are looking at optimization in terms of energy from generation, distribution, and consumption. And from an environmental perspective in our ESG reports and such, we're looking at prioritization of renewable energies. I know we are around 95 or 99% renewable from the geos and the hydros. But as Liga said, we have also solar, wind, and also smaller teams producing this. So use of artificial intelligence through the physical infrastructures, with the data centers, with the laboratories, and just to mention, our ministry is doing more than 100,000 kilometers of fiber connectivity, which is part of the physical infrastructure to support artificial intelligence in this country. Then it means that from the developers to the consumers, then we'll be able to optimize utilization and prioritize what you're saying, utilization of carbon zero or less carbon emission sources of energy in this country. And of course, there's the opportunity of the carbon credits, which comes in. It's a bit complex. NEMA is doing it, but you find different people to access it and also follow through the requirements in there. They need to get consultants. But with artificial intelligence softwares and all those algorithms, it be easier then for Kenyans from more cadres of economic level to be able to use artificial intelligence, get the analysis, and also then project percentage savings, and therefore also acquire the income, which is there globally on carbon credits against their savings. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Architect Anna, for expounding, especially on the infrastructure side of things and how that is key. I just wanted to move to Dr. Fenwix Musonye. You wear two hats, both as a regulator and as someone who is in academia. So I just wanted to hear your perspectives in terms of what is the one regulatory shift that you think can be able to unlock scale, especially for, you know, energy-related innovations.
Thank you. This thing is quite challenging to use, but fine. I hope I'm audible. So thank you very much for that. One, in how many minutes? You know, it's very embarrassing when you talk, and you wish to stop me, but you can't stop me. So
no, I have zero chills. I'll stop you.
Okay, fine. Yes. So that's okay. As I started, when I gave the introductory remarks, we talk about AI in the entire value chain of electricity, of energy sector. And one of the ways, I always like to talk about policy than regulation, because regulatory is a bit on the lower level. There's a problem we've been facing in terms of actually modeling our mostly intermittent power plants. So someone gives you a wind power plant and tells you, I will give you 80% capacity factor, when you know sometimes probably it's not even possible. But it could be because he used the wrong data, or he had incurred so many errors when he was doing the planning. And you wake up another day, someone tells you he's going to do 300 megawatts of energy from urban solid waste. Actually, I was talking to my students yesterday about that thing. And you know, it's a hoax, it can't work. But because they are using wrong data to do that, or even if they have the correct data, they can't model well. So when AI comes in, it assists to reduce those errors, computation errors. So in future, we may not have someone telling us he's going to do 1 gigawatt from urban solid waste from Kakamega town, because the AI will have assisted that. But how do we ensure that happens in policy? Then we should now come up with policy targets in terms of, should you bring us a power plant or a proposal for a power plant, then we want to see a model, and your model must have a specific error. So we are no longer going to accept maybe even a 5% error. We might say maybe 1% error. And those models can really do it. You can use machine learning, you can use deep learning to do that, so that you can collect data, like for example, wind data for a long time. Then the wind data can accurately predict what it can generate for you in the next 10 years. Then, of course, there's also the day after predictions that we can also use in that. But what the regulation or the policy should do is not to prescribe specifically what should happen. We just tell you, when you give us a model, we want a 1% error, and nothing less than that, if it's less than that. So what you do in between with AI should be your problem, because most of the times when you prescribe, when you use what you call a command and control in a policy perspectives, then you kill innovation. So we just give them an end goal and tell them this is what you want. Same thing to consumption side, where also when now people are doing the optimization of energy use, especially in these industries that we regulate as EPRA, we would want to have certain level of certainty or reliability of data. And this reliability, now we will tell the actors in between, the energy auditors, the facilities, to use now machine learning, to use deep learning, to use artificial neural networks, to make sure that they are doing things at the highest precision as possible to improve that. So I see you are looking at me saying I should stop. I have stopped. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. But I think key takeaway there is how we can use these tools to, reduce errors in how we relate to data. I don't know, Ambassador Tigo, do you have any comments on, from a policy standpoint, what's the shift that you think would be able to unlock scale?
I think, and a very quick, again, I agree on the data part of it. That I think, but again, it's also to be very real that AI doesn't fix data problems. I think we still have to invest on data. First of all, financing for data, but also building the capacity around how we collect our data, how we strengthen our data systems in terms of consistency, interoperability, and I think that's important. And sometimes you think of government regulating, but I have a sense that also institutions, especially in the energy sector, need to build those systems themselves. Because each institution needs to have its own regulations around data and data policy. I think that's going to be important, especially around the investment case for data. Second part, of course, I think is the posture, I think, for me, and we've said it, in this country, when it comes into this age of intelligence, we also have to be very intelligent in how we design policy, which means our regulations need to move from being very static, as they are right now, to being very adaptive, because the space is moving very quickly. So how do you regulate a space that moves, that is adaptive with static policies? I think there's kind of a mindset there that we need to change. Second part, of course, I think is the second or third, I think is very much, so I'm really talking about outcome-based regulations rather than being prescriptive. I think the second part is this interoperability piece, because as you've had, there's different energy mixes, the energy is for something, which means energy is supposed to deliver a specific outcome. So how do we ensure that we also improve interoperability? And this is where I think the silos thing need to go. And I don't think there's any regulation that helps break silos. I think it's very much around how we look at this from an ecosystem perspective, and that everything we do must align because we have to deliver, in broader sense, public goods. I think, finally, I think is to understand that, and this is a case we're trying to make, is that energy, especially energy infrastructure in the age of intelligence, must be critical infrastructure. And that provides a very different policy posture when it becomes critical between smart grids, digital control systems, as you've mentioned, right? So somebody who gives wrong data, I think there has to be a cost into that, because you cannot pump, a certain amount of energy on the grid when it's wrong. There's a certain risk that poses the grid. And I think for me, those are the big ones. Finally, I think, and this is a conversation we're having in the holding room with my colleagues from the other countries, is part of that shift also needs to understand that we are not in a silo as a country, that we draw energy from Ethiopia, we pass energy through Kenya to Tanzania. And so there's an idea that we have to think a shift around region. We have to think of a regulation around region. So I'm looking at regional interoperability, that energy becomes very fluid. Tanzania has more energy than us. They may not need it, but we need it. So how do we ensure that there's interoperability around? And so again, you require a very different posture around policy and regulation.
Right, thank you so much, Ambassador. I think the point that you raised about there's no regulation that addresses silos, yeah? So we can also try to do our best job in terms of connecting the silos, yeah? So I want to jump to Dr. Wayua. In your work, the research labs, part of what you do is experimentation, and I'm sure you've done a good job in terms of scaling some of these insights or solutions that come out of the labs. But I just wanted to understand what are some of the challenges that you face when trying to take those ideas or innovations to scale, and how do you sort of address them? Yeah.
Wow. That's a big question. Thank you for that. So maybe I'll start with just setting a bit of context. So as a research lab, the first step is actually we understand the technology quite well. We innovate around technology, but for the technology to be meaningful, it's actually about how you apply that technology to a meaningful problem for your end user. Okay, so in the energy space, maybe the example I'll give is this. There's been a lot of conversation and energy, I shouldn't use energy because, and a lot of passion around generative AI and foundation models. And so IBM, as part of a larger consortium with lots of partners across the globe, we came and said, how do we build a foundation model for energy, right, for the grid? And part of the challenge is, yes, we got data, we built something, but the first part is that you have to have partners that you can work with closely so that in that part of experimentation, they validate the questions you're asking. They give you an opportunity to experiment with real world data. A lot of what is available open source tends to be either synthetic data or data from a grid that's maybe 20 years old or 30 years old. So for us to actually be able to develop something that's incredibly meaningful, you have to have actual data and recent data, and then experts that you can work with. And I think the challenge today is what you tend to have is, other than my brother here, you tend to have people who are experts in the energy space and experts in technology. And then a lot of magic and craziness happens in the middle, partly because of communication, because you have to bridge a lot of challenges there. You have to understand each other, you have to understand the problem and how the problem matches the technology. So for me, I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges in being able to create a meaningful solution. And then I think the second part in terms of scaling has to do with how the willingness to experiment. And sometimes experiments, not sometimes, all the time, experiments don't come with service level agreements. Right? So we have to create the room and space to allow for us to experiment, put these things out so that we test them, so that way we can all come together and say, here's the actual business value that we've created from this innovation. And so if I were to summarize it, I would say it's the biggest challenge is how you start the journey together, both as technology experts or AI experts, however you want to call it, and energy experts, so that you work with us to sense check how we are framing certain problems. We have a decent understanding, but sometimes part of what makes a solution scale is the fact that there are numbers in an organization that really quantify the magnitude of a problem. We may know it's a problem, but if we're able to quantify the magnitude of the problem, then we can quantify the magnitude of the impact. And that is what people can now take maybe to the board to get board approval, because we know the problem, we know what technology will address it, and we know all the way to the end of what the desired impact will be, rather than just maybe a tender that a technology company will see and respond to the best of their knowledge. I think creating mechanisms of co-creation in that way really help innovations to scale, because the nature of an innovation is that sometimes we may not anticipate everything about it, so it's co-creation. Sorry for taking long.
Thank you so much for that. So a culture of experimentation, partnerships, those are some of the ingredients of scale. Because we have a very hard stop in the next few minutes, so I just want to give every panelist 60 seconds, one final takeaway in terms of this discussion, how we can drive scale for innovations, particularly AI-driven in energy innovations. Architect Anna, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you. I would say that as a government, we need to create some sandboxes where all experiments on AI and energy can happen. And for that, Konza Technopolis is open. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Musonye?
Yes, she stole my idea about sandbox regulation. So I will add that we need to go to Ofgem in UK. I think they do very well in sandbox regulation, where I'll just explain now, where you give people or the people you are regulating some sort of some waivers on some of the requirements so that you can give them space to innovate and improve using AI or another technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ayu.
All right. I would say first, willingness. The willingness for all of us to learn the technology and those in technology to learn the problems or challenges that the energy sector faces. And then a willingness to try, a willingness to adopt, and a willingness to embrace the different changes so that we can make change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last but not least.
A couple of things, and because we kind of says a lot of these things. I think one is to realize the challenge of the topic. Scaling AI-driven energy innovation. Remember, AI by itself is energy intensive. So I think for me, it's also to understand that this is a very complex problem. Because you want to use AI, yet to improve energy, yet AI itself is energy intensive. So I think I just wanted to frame that one. But I think secondly is a couple of things. One quickly is that, again, I've had the need for experimentation and sandbox, but also the need to follow through. And this is an African problem that we do not necessarily deliver, right? So that part from prototype to scale, that path alone we're not very good at. I think we need to ensure that we deliver. And the PPP directorate was here, and they'll tell you. We talk about PPPs, but we've only had one successful PPP. And that PPP has been on roads. So let's also be, I think, very honest. And sometimes my boss says we need to be very honest in these conversations. The second part, I think, is no one can do this alone. AI never fixes anything. It's about partnerships. It's about building ecosystems. So how do we build this ecosystem around energy innovation, starting with the young people across the room, together with governments, together with private sector, together with the previous panel around financing, both traditional, blended, and new types of capital. I think the final one is we're ultimately building an infrastructure of the future. And I think until we kind of frame this, I don't think we'll be building anything resilient. So how do we think infrastructure? The same way we think roads, rails, the same way we think monuments, buildings, the same way we need to think about this. Because without resiliency, I don't want to be here 2 years from now talking about the same problem.
All right, thank you so much. I think if there's a message from this panel, it's that scale is not just about one breakthrough, but alignment. Thank you so much, panelists. Please give a round of applause to our panelists. I wish we had more time to continue the conversation. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause for them. We appreciate you very, very much for those insights. Please step forward. We'd like to at least shake your hands and say a very big asante. Even if I can't see our ushers with the gifts quite yet, we might have to get them over to you digitally, isn't it? All right, but please step forward. Please step forward. I'd like to invite a member of our board of directors at EPRA, Mr. Simon Jogona, sir. Would you please join us and say thank you very much indeed to the ambassador and to all the panelists for their contribution. Photographers, we could also take a moment to take their picture. Sir, if you would. Makofi tena tafadhali. Thank you. Thank you and congratulations. Looks like you're going to get them in hard copy. Ambassador, please allow us to gift you this. Just 1 second, just 1 minute. The director will give it to you. Thank you. It will. Oh, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. You need to run. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. This is yours. No, you keep it. Yeah, Ulilipia. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. A round of them. Thank you. Thank you very much. So very shortly, we're going to set up the stage for the moment we have all been waiting for, which is, of course, our awards ceremony. So please do stay in the room as we get ready for that in just a minute. Results for us. It's been a very difficult task for our judges, I've been told, to sift through the amount of brilliance, really, that they've been subjected to over the last couple of days and come up with winners. A difficult task, but one that they have performed. So I would like to invite now at least 2 of our judges. I believe that they have arranged themselves. 2 judges to come and give us an overview of what they've seen throughout the week and, of course, their judging criteria. So, judges? Or I believe Mr. Clinton Sabali. Is it Mr. Clinton Sabali who will be joining us right now to give us an overview of the Youth Hackathon? Clinton, are you in the room? Again, Mr. Clinton Sabali, who will give us an overview of the week at the Youth Hackathon. If you're in the room, please step forward. Shall we do something slightly naughty? Could you help me? Could everybody say, Clinton? Come on, don't be shy. It's the Youth Awards. Say, Clinton. All right, please give us a moment as we locate him to do that for us.
I use this. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, All right, my name is Clinton Sabali. I was the MC on the other end. Before I get into briefing us on the hackathon, allow me welcome Miss Monica to give us an overview of what the judges or the challenge areas were. Miss Monica. All right, I guess Miss Monica is not in. So there were two main challenge focus areas. One was transport and carbon accounting. That was one challenge area we are looking at. And then second challenge area we are looking at was tariffs. We had 6 teams on the transport and carbon accounting, and we had 3 teams on the tariffs. A total, we had 40 participants from a pool of over 150 who applied for this EPRA Hackathon 2026. Just to enlighten you, it is our inaugural hackathon for this year, 2026. And we hope we'll be having subsequent hackathons just to engage the youths on a couple of issues and to allow them also have their voices come down on paper. I'll run you so quickly before I allow us to mention the judges on what the judging criteria was like. So we are looking at 6 main key areas. One was problem framing and regulatory relevance. The other one was use of data and evidence. The third one was solution, quality, and innovation. The fourth one was feasibility, scalability, and sustainability. The next was ethic governance and responsible innovation. And last one, we are just looking at general, how are you pitching? How is your communication? Because we're building models. What is the design like? How are you bringing it out? That is what our amazing team of 40 youths were doing. We didn't only have those 40 only. We had others who were coming in just to listen to the good masterclasses. A good shout out to EPRA, UNDP, who pulled out this. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've been waiting for.
Maman dit que lorsqu'on cherche
Welcome to this year's EPRA Youth Hackathon Awards. And the categories are Best Overall Solution, First Runners-Up, Second Runners-Up, and Best Use of Data. And the nominees are Emit MQ, Equitarian, JPP, Tariff Kenya, Fair Power, Carbon Action, Carbon IQ, Evener. Congratulations to all our winners.
And I'd now like to invite Mr. James Manda from A4 South Africa to help me give this award. And for the best use of data, the award goes to Fairgrid. Fairgrid please join us on stage? Could we please have the awards on stage as well, ushers? The awards, please. Another round of applause for them. Congratulations. I promise we will get that award to you. You may exit the stage. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Board Director for Electricity Control Board in Namibia, Ms. Vincia Cloette. I hope I got your name right, ma'am, to join me on the stage and help me present the next award. And the winner of the second runner-up award is Fairgrid. Please stay on stage. Your awards are ready for you. Congratulations to you, gentlemen, for the brilliance you've shown this week. You may take a photo and then exit the stage. Thank you. I would now like to request Mr. Simon Jugona, a member of the EPRA Board of Directors, to join on stage to hand over the next award. Ushers, please step forward. And now, the first runners-up award goes to RKO. RKO, join us on stage. Congratulations. Another round of applause for them as they come. Congratulations to you, RKO. Very, very well done. Thank you. You may take your seats. Let me ask our board member to stay on stage as we give the final award as well. He will also be joined by, is the Director General in the room? If he is not, we will also be joined by the Director Economic Strategy, flanked by the Deputy Director Research. Please join us on stage to give this final big award. I'd also like to request Ms. Winnie Rachel, if you're in the room, the Country Director of UNICAF, who've also been the very kind sponsors of this particular challenge. Let's applaud UNICAF and thank you so much for partnering with us. Director Nawoi, also, if you please come forward, please join us also in giving this award. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Best Overall Solution category is Even Hub. Congratulations, Even Hub. Please be quick on your step as you come to receive your award. Let's welcome them with another round of applause for a job well done throughout the week. Congratulations to you. And we're not just giving them a little gift box, they also receive a check of 100,000 Kenya shillings.
This is your celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. A celebration to last throughout the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on now. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Celebration. We gon' celebrate and have a good time. It's time.
Well done. Let's give them a final round of applause. Congratulations, Even Hub. We can't wait to see what you will do. Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations. You may take your seats. You may take your seats. Thank you.
It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on.
A brilliant week that has been marked with the appropriate razzmatazz for a job well done. We can't wait to see those solutions applied in real time. I'd like to invite very briefly Ms. Monica from EPRA to just in a very short moment explain what those categories were about and the work that has been done during the week. Let's welcome her with an applause as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, is it afternoon or is it still morning? Good afternoon. My name is Monica Kitili. I'm a senior energy planner with Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. My background is in energy modeling, and we've been cracking our heads since Monday to try to hack the future. And as you can see, we've come up with winners. So what they were basically doing, we had two challenge areas. We had a challenge area on tariff structures where they were supposed to assist the authority and Kenya Power in categorizing residential households. So what we've realized over time, some of households, like the high income areas, they've been able to install solar panels, and the current classification mechanism only uses consumption to be able to classify a customer or a domestic consumer as a lifeline customer or domestic ordinary or wealthy or luxurious customers, and that's how they are charged. So because of the invention of solar panels, you realize that these high income areas, people are consuming way less from the grid, and using consumption alone as a measure to decide whether you're lifeline or your ordinary customer has become quite unable to classify our customers properly, because then someone who is consuming little from the grid just because they have solar panels are being classified as lifeline. So the challenge to the students and the youth were to help us to come up with better solution using machine learning, Internet of Things, and deep learning tools to be able to better classify our customers in the domestic areas. So one of the winners, they were able to come up with a multi-factor equity index that looks at your location, that looks at your energy burden and your poverty score, and plus consumption to be able to classify you either as lifeline, as domestic, ordinary, or a luxurious customer, so that then you're able to place you into a better band as you pay for your tariffs. There was also a second category of challenge in terms of transport carbon accounting, and you're looking at our nationally determined contribution. As Kenya, we are mandated to reduce our carbon emissions by 35% by 2035. And we were asking ourselves, what else can be done to help us achieve this NDC target? Because then we know that we have an NDC target, but then we are lacking tools to help us account for these carbon emissions. So that was another category of challenge, but we were able to come up with carbon accounting tools, and private sector in the room, you may want to look at those ideas that were proposed within that category, because they were very good carbon accounting tools that can help you track emissions just by using devices that are installed within your vehicles. You can be able to tell how much a car is able to emit, and you can be able to see the savings between your EV fleet and your fossil fueled powered vehicles. So those were two challenge areas, and they were very incredible ideas, but as they say, there can only be one winner. So again, I applaud our youth, and I think, I know we are going to have more hackathons, and we are going to have more challenge areas, and we keep welcoming these ideas, because every solution started with an idea. Thank you very much. Thank you for the support that we've received, and well, that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have had a long, fruitful, successful week, and I'd like to invite the Director, Economic Planning and Strategy, Dr. John Mutua, to please join us on stage and give us the conference highlights. Oh, okay, I would rather have the Deputy Director, Regulatory Research and Policy Analysis, Njoki Karanja, to give us those highlights. Let's welcome her with an applause. You may also know that she, together with her team, have been behind this brilliant conference. And hasn't it been brilliant? Hasn't it? So she deserves a better round of applause as she comes up for the incredible work done the entire week.
Thank you, Anne. I don't think many delegates believed that it has been brilliant. So please do scan the QR code and give us your feedback. Directors, EPRA in the board who are present, Director Simon and Director Jennifer, our international dignitaries present, industry representatives present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I take this chance to appreciate everyone for making this 7th Regional Research and Innovation Conference a success. It has been a week of networking, insightful deliberations, and knowledge sharing and mentorship. We truly do not take your time for granted. To our regional guests, thank you for joining us and for visiting Kenya. And we do hope that today does not mark the end of your visit. Please take time to enjoy our beautiful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share my reflections on some of the highlights of this year's Research and Innovation Week. Our pre-conference activities started strong with the Women in Energy Forum on Monday, themed Plugged In, leading the charge for a connected continent. The forum saw over 90 women who came together to network, discuss how to drive strategy and influence Africa's future, as well as making commitments to themselves and the sector to make their presence seen and heard. Thank you to all the women who contributed to the success of the forum and to our chief guest, Honorable Ruth Nankabirwa Sentamu, the Cabinet Minister for the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in Uganda, for being a part of it. The second activity on the same day was the inaugural EPRA Youth Summit Hackathon in collaboration with UNDP. The hackathon focused on two areas: electricity tariff structures and data-driven carbon accounting, which Monica has articulated really well. And we had 32 innovators selected from over 130 applicants. Our youth are really brilliant. Over the course of the program, the young innovators engaged in problem framing, ideation, solution design, prototyping, validation, and mock pitching, supported by over 10 experts who delivered masterclasses on design thinking, regulatory context, data analytics, AI, and digital tools, business modeling, ethics, and data governance, and policy-oriented communication. On Tuesday, which was day 2 of the conference, saw the official start of the Research and Innovation Conference by placing regulators, government representatives, researchers, and industry leaders at the center of the dialogue. The scene was set in a candid conversation on advancing energy affordability and security in sustainable development from a global and African lens. We explored the critical role of regulation in enabling sustainable development, while also spotlighting research on time-of-use tariffs, off-grid systems, and the intersection of academia and industry. Most important, this day reinforced that evidence-based decision-making is no longer optional. It is essential. Yesterday, the conference evolved into a dynamic exchange of technical knowledge and innovation. Across parallel sessions, we saw cross-cutting research on renewable energy, LPG safety, energy efficiency, innovation in the oil and gas value chain, and emerging technologies in the energy sector. Discussions on e-mobility, AI-driven energy systems, and green industrialization demonstrated that the future of energy is not distant, but one that is already taking shape. We also had a successful peer learning session co-curated by EPRA and AFDB with participants from 10 countries. The session brought together both nascent and mature regulators and regional regulatory institutions to exchange ideas and knowledge around tariff design and methodology architecture in our respective countries. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Earlier today, our focus shifted towards innovative financing mechanisms, AI, and digital transformation. The conversations highlighted the urgent need to create enabling environments where ideas can scale into impactful solutions. Yet the Youth Hackathon Awards you have just witnessed is a culmination of parallel sessions that have been taking place where not just ideas, but actionable, regulator-ready solutions grounded on real challenges were formulated. We may have come to an end of this year's edition, but I am greatly motivated by all the activities and sessions I have just highlighted. I hope you are looking forward to the next edition and that you will show up with bigger and even better ideas. I now leave you with the words of Socrates, that the secret of change is to focus all of our energy, not on fighting the old, but building on the new. In the context of this research and innovation conference, that new is the collective power of evidence-based research, forward-looking regulation, and practical innovation to deliver energy that is both affordable and secure for all. As we confront rising demand, evolving technologies, and the realities of climate transition, our task is not to be constrained by legacy systems, but to reimagine them guided by data, strengthened by collaboration, and anchored in the needs of the consumer. Let this conference be a platform where bold ideas are tested, scalable solutions are advanced, and partnerships are forged to ensure that no household or enterprise is left behind. In building on the new, we are not only shaping the future of the energy, we are securing it, making it more accessible, and ultimately improving the quality of life for all. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Deputy Director.
I'd like to welcome on stage our Director, Economic Regulation and Strategy, a man who is not only our leader, but our mentor, a man who always encourages us to think big and who we owe a lot of the success to this conference too. So karibu sana, Dr. Mutua.
Thank you so much, Joki. I never thought that I can be introduced that way. Yeah, before maybe I give a vote of thanks, because I've just come here for a vote of thanks, I would like to invite our director, Naoi, who is Director EPRA Board, to say something on behalf of the Chair, Board of Directors of EPRA. Karibu, Director.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't want to spend much time. We've already taken our 4 days here. Allow me to recognize my fellow director, Director Simon. Also to recognize the delegations from other countries who are here with us. Dr. Mutua has been gracious enough to represent our Director General, industry players who attended this session, our young innovators who have shown us some of the things they have done, staff of EPRA who are here. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Naoi. I sit in the board of EPRA. On behalf of our chairman, who was here the second day, I want to thank you all for making this conference a success. There is a lot of take-home points that we've picked from all the discussions that happened from the first day on the Women in Energy Forum to today. We surely have a lot that we've learned. This conference has achieved what was designed to create a nexus between the innovators, the researchers, the government and the regulator in between, and the industry players. We do hope that together we'll be able to drive the energy agenda. It will also help us to identify some of the gaps within the industry that the government can be able to help so that we all move forward. As on behalf of the chairman, I want to thank you all, the staff of EPRA who have given a lot of effort to make this conference a success. We want to see more of these interactions going forward. We want to see the industry players, especially our licensees. So it's our expectation that this forum brings in the industry players, the people we license as EPRA, so that we will be able to have a conversation on how best we can improve the sector. Thank you all. For those of you who will be traveling outside this country, we wish you well in your travel. Take our greetings to your countries of origin. Thank you so much for gracing our conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Naoi. We really do appreciate the support we always get from our board of directors at EPRA. May God bless you. Mine this afternoon is very simple. I'm supposed to do a vote of thanks. Just to mention that this is the 7th Research and Innovation Conference, and it has been a great one, advancing energy affordability and security in sustainable development. And I do believe it has been very timely, and it was held at a period where energy sectors globally have been affected by what is happening in the Mediterranean. But we thank God that everything has been successful, and this theme was very timely. In fact, a week ago, one of, I'm sometimes on X, Twitter, and I don't know, it was a pastor from Nigeria or is Kenya. We tend to have extremes in those two countries when it comes to religion. And somebody posted that the Church of Strait of Hormuz has just been launched and the prayers were to be held somewhere. Just because of this turbulence that the global markets have been experiencing. So I really thank God. Last year when we were thinking about this theme, we didn't know that things in the Strait of Hormuz, energy security, sustainability are going to be reflected in such a manner. I would like to give thanks to the Minister of Energy and Petroleum, of course our Honorable Cabinet Secretary Opio and I was not able to be with us, but actually he is the one who had agreed with the dates, but he had to go with the President in another engagement, but he missed out. But he was humbly presented by the acting PS for the State Department of Petroleum, so we give thanks to him. We can clap for them. I would like also to thank the Honorable Ruth Nikaribiwa Sentamu, the Cabinet Minister, Minister of Energy and Minerals, the Republic of Uganda, who graced and provided official opening for this workshop. In absentia, let's clap for her. She told us many things, being a mother with 7 children, plugged in into the energy sector. Although I attended that meeting in 3 minutes just to be seen but disappear, I really loved what the women were doing. Maybe the men conference also next year should focus on tangible issues like the matters of energy. We discuss relationships, but I think we need to focus more on energy. I would like to thank the board of EPRA, led by our chairperson, Chairman Ali, and the board members who have been present, Madam Nahoi and Simon Juguna, And all the others who are not able to make it, we thank you, because it's through your support that you can be able to give us this platform where we don't fear to share the issues on matters of energy, and we collaborate with the other regulators and nations, and also the collaboration between industry, consumers, and also the policymakers, which is important. So I say thank you very much. We can appreciate them. Again, this morning we had Ambassador Philip Thigo, the Special Envoy, Technology Envoy, the Executive Office of the President. Also, we appreciate him for coming. We can clap for him. And I would like to thank the African Development Bank, led by Calix Kabanda, who is the head of the Energy Division, who the bank has supported us during this conference, and also they were able to help us also bring our peer regulators from across the continent, led by Aful, and we really want to appreciate the bank for that. Again, our own Kenya Commercial Bank group that has been a key partner for us in this conference, and also supporting and nurturing talent within the energy sector, including financing of projects. So we really also thank KCB. Trinity Energy Group, Stima Circle, the Danish Energy Agency, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Timbuktu, Basigo, and thank you, Basigo. I don't know whether you are still in the house. Anybody from Basigo? Oh, yeah, they are still here. They provided clean energy transport, vehicles that are powered with green energy. Every morning, they provided buses that were picking participants who are coming for this conference. Really, we appreciate them. So let's appreciate all the partners, please. I would also like to appreciate the AFUL, the Africa Forum for Utility Regulators, led by our chairman, Dr. Kaimise, and really appreciate all the regulators that are here. We had about 10 of them, and about 30 regulators who are here. So really to thank you, all the regulators who are here, and AFU. Also my brother, James Manda, we don't take for granted that also you are here. So let's appreciate them. I would like to appreciate all the conference participants. It takes time, to make time for something. From Monday, Tuesday up to Thursday today, we have experienced very good attendance, very good participation. As because of time, we are not able to share quite a number of things, but really want to appreciate. So appreciate ourselves, please. I would like to appreciate the Youth Summit and the hackathon. Very amazing ideas. I was at the meeting to one of my friends. I'm an old school person. I did my bachelor's degree using a calculator, and sometimes we used to have a maths table. But these are generations that is using AI to do modeling and still arriving at the same answer. Sometimes with the old school people think that they are smarter than the new ones, but I can tell you the young people have been able to solve a lot of problems in the last 3 years that were pending for years. Yeah, and today we can talk about many things that are happening. So really to appreciate the youth, the hackathon, and also the winners, in the competition that has happened. It's not really a competition because everybody has ideas. It's only like the highly ranked maybe ideas are the ones we are recognized, but all of them were equally important. Let's appreciate them. We also had panels that were led by panelists, people who participated in the various panels. Sometimes it takes time to be courageous and also share and also prepare for the panels that we had. So let's appreciate all the panels. Yeah. I would like also to thank the EPRA staff. The EPRA staff have done a commendable job. They have been with us since the financial year. You know, our financial year begins July 1st, so they have supported us in various ways when we have been preparing for the Research and Innovation Conference. This is not a matter of one department or directorate, but is an institutional issue. So really to thank everybody who has given us support. And of course, the team that prepares for this, the Research and Innovation Conference Committee, led by Jogi Karanja. I don't know where we still have some members here. I want to appreciate you in a special way. The committee members, how many are here? Bibi, stand. Yeah, Jogi, please. Yeah, they are scattered. Yeah, Jogi, Anne Kiprotich, Alan, and Hamid Mohammed. Thank you very much. And yeah, Hamid Mohammed, and I think Edwin. Yeah, I see somebody. Okay, Karanja, Michael Karanja. Thank you. So really, this is a team that looks at the papers, the proposals when they are presented. They go through them, they vet all the papers, and now we select the papers to be presented during the conference. And of course, preparing the content for the conference, and also what innovations are to be innovations that are to be presented here. So thank you very much. I would like also to thank the media. You know, the media is the fourth estate, very critical because they are able to disseminate, and help us communicate what we have done today. Let's appreciate them, please. Lastly, above all, to thank God. Sometimes we forget, those who are Christian or Muslim, or, at least you pray to our God. Is to thank God for all He has done for us during this conference. Tumekula chakula, we have traversed the city, walking during the mornings, in the evenings, and we have all been safe. We have not had a report that has been adverse. So really, to thank God for what He has done, and also what God is doing in our country. We take it for granted that we can have peace and harmony, and a platform that we can be able to share the aspirations of both the young people, what the government is doing, what the regulators are doing, what the industry is doing. Really, we thank God. Let's clap for God for this. And with that, my work on stage is done. I want to hand over to Han. Before I hand over to her, Anne used to be on the screens, and I met her in person now, just the other day, and she's now doing something different. I don't see her on the screens. I don't know whether she's there, or maybe I watched the wrong ones. But I think she has done a wonderful job. Let's appreciate her. Yeah. And the media team. I mean, we have not had a blackout. The camera guys have been covering all these things. Sometimes we may forget them, but they do a special. Let's appreciate them as well. Above all, the Edge Convention Center. So these are very nice facilities. Actually, KICC, I thought they had better facilities, but I'm just wondering, whether there is, in a fair competition. These guys are doing well, isn't it? Let's appreciate them. And that includes everybody that was providing hospitality. I have seen Sarofa and their facilities here as well. We appreciate them also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you too. Thank you. And that's where we bring it to a close. We want to invite you to lunch very shortly as we celebrate what the week has been. But could we please put up the QR code just to remind you that we have great information on it and we value your feedback and we need it. So please scan this QR code. On it, you'll also find event photographs, I believe, and a feedback form. And we really do want to hear from you. So please take a moment to scan that before you leave the room. good. I'd like to ask the media team to keep that QR code on the screen so that as participants prepare to leave, they'll still be able to scan it, get their photos, and please do fill in that form. So as you depart for lunch, which will be served on the first floor, remember the research does not end here, the regulation does not end here, and certainly the brilliance of the young teams who joined us over the week, their innovation has only just began. As you've heard, my name is Anne Kiguta. Thank you so much for being with us, and we wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Karibuni sana to lunch. We'd like to ask our high tables led by our directors, as well as directors of the board and other senior officials of EPRA, those who joined us also on stage, to first exit the room. I'd like to ask Madam Joki if you would please lead them out to lunch before I invite the rest of our participants to lunch. Thank you very, very much indeed, and get home safe. Bye-bye.